I'm Sasha Renault, and today I'm going to show you a quick tutorial on how to play Spindlewheel. If you'd like to hear a game in its entirety, check the description for links to an actual place you can listen to. I'm playing this in Tabletop Simulator, but there are versions on Tabletop Playground, playingcards.io, and Roll20, as well as physical copies, also linked in the description. So what is Spindlewheel? Spindlewheel is a tarot-like storytelling game where you weave a story from card to card. It utilizes an oracle deck of cards that each have two sides with a bit of poetry on them. Sometimes they're diametrically opposed, sometimes they're two sides of the same coin. You see this guy over here. That's a Spindlewheel card. These are the foundation of Spindlewheel. To play, you read, interpret, and anchor your actions in the cards you've drawn. That sounds complex, but it's really not. As long as you're playing cards to justify your actions, you're playing Spindlewheel right. Safety and courtesy. There is no tool that will replace playing in good faith and taking care of each other at the table, but I've given a lot of thought to what vulnerabilities Spindlewheel exposes. In brief, they are bleed, curation, tone, and consent. For bleed, be mindful of what feelings and experiences the cards may evoke, and look out for each other. This deck can take unexpectedly dark turns. For curation, don't hesitate to use the X card, and redraw if a card or spread doesn't fit the story you want to tell. The tone of your story is up to you to decide. If playing with kids, consider curating the deck before you play. When you want to explore a topic that will shift the tone of the game, ask how folks feel about it first. If anyone is hesitant, investigate or consider a different direction. You need both courtesy and consent to affect a player's character. To have courtesy is to respect the player's choices, be a fan of their character, and center their reactions and emotions in the scene. To have consent is to obtain their clear and uncoerced permission. As with the rest of the rules, there is an extended safety and courtesy section that you can check out in the official PDF linked in the description. Setup. In order to play, you'll need a Spindlewheel deck, some patterns, an X card or safety tool of your choice, a large flat surface, 1 to 5 players, and around 2 to 4 hours. Digitally, patterns are these boards, but physically they take the form of cards. There are 2 patterns to choose from: long form, which is built for epic stories with lots of downtime and slow build, and festival, which is built for bombast and mayhem. We'll cover festival first. Fill each slot with 2 cards face down. Once we've prepped our pattern, we can build our world. Make the world spread out of 6 facet cards and 3 fate cards. This is based off of Tarot's classic Celtic cross spread. You can put the fates at the bottom, or to the side, or even at the top if it feels right. It does not much matter. Flip the cards and read through them. If you're playing for the first time, I recommend flipping 1 card at a time. I personally prefer to flip them all at once, but this is up to you. If you're playing multiplayer, everyone at the table interprets the world together. The world's facets are the heart of the situation and what complicates it, the good news, the bad news, the current desire, and the core's winning tactic. First, read each card aloud. Feel free to invert the cards. Each of you choose something about the card that interests you: a word, a phrase, a concept, an image, a tone, an element of the art. Use that as an anchor to propose something true about the world. It can be as banal or outlandish as you like, as long as it ties back to the card in some way. Then, ask another player a leading question about the card they're interested in. Ask what kind of bribes were taken. If you have an answer, say so. If you're not sure, draw a card from the deck to answer for you, and add that card to the spread. Say, I think Arachne is taking the bribes. Build on each other's ideas until you have a tangible world you're excited about. Don't worry about solving every mystery now, but be sure that by the end of this phase, every card has a connotation that is specific to the world you've built so far. For instance, in this spread, maybe Arachne is a organization that is, or a factory that produces textiles that also happens to be a part of organized crime in the area from Black Book. maybe the thing that helps them, the good news, as unicorn, beautiful and territorial, horn dripping with poacher's blood, maybe they've been challenged before and they've, managed to fend off investigators with great violence. And the bad news, being flood, maybe this is that they are getting a little bit too big for their britches. Maybe the amount of money that they're bringing in outpaces the amount of the amount that they can spend it. It's a very strange problem, but perhaps it is causing strife within the organization itself. And the desire being Ophelia's garland is very interesting. Maybe let's flip this to be a weeping flower crown, a dubious honor, a sickly and desperate faith. To have the leader of this this Arachne group be kind of a putz, be kind of a both a figurehead and a fall guy. And the Core's winning tactic is Nightmare, so maybe that's done. Fears justified, omens fulfilled. Maybe there's a degree of superstition within the organization that they're manipulating in order to get the right person on the throne, as it were. Now, once you've interpreted all the cards, then we read the world's 3 fates. Deal and interpret these cards one at a time. Picture these as a glimpse into the history of the world. You have Clotho, the instigating catalyst, Lachesis, the world's current state, and Atropos, the world's expected future. For example, in this spread, we have the instigating catalyst being Keepers, which feels very consonant with Black Book. Wanderers speak truths that wound and knowledge that corrupts. Maybe this was a almost an altruistic organization at first, undercutting the powers that be with truths and blackmail. Lachesis, the current state, thunder and fire, a column of ash, lava black and crackling red. I think I want to flip this actually to be a dormant goddess, a cooling island lush with sprouts, a season of peace, because I like this sense with flood of maybe a little bit more downtime than they can handle. And Atropos, the expected future, is Echo, a glance unseen, a shadow trailing, and a desire unrequited. Now, the world's Atropos is a feeling in the air, a general vibe of what the future holds. It is not certain by any means. We'll find out at the end of the game if it came true. So maybe this is the sense of another organization rising up to challenge the Arachne group. Once you've read these spreads and agreed on a world you're excited about, move on to character creation. Each player gets their own character. Draft or draw cards to fill your spread, and interpret your character as a denizen of the world you've built together. The facets for characters are core, who you are, crossing, what you're known for, boon, your greatest asset, bane, your worst problem, desire, what you want most, and method, how you'll get what you want. You can step into an existing character or create someone new. Either way, write their name and pronouns where other people can see. For example, with this spread, I think this is a goon, um, a river babbling in a familiar voice, muffled words without meaning, and goose down, a notable delay, a layer of numbness. I think this is someone uh, who has uh, who has had their tongue cut out, and who is muscle for the Arachne group. Um, Boone, the greatest asset, shadows cast on the cave wall. I think this person's reputation far exceeds their actual ability. Um, Bane, your worst problem, wildfire, clearing the underbrush, maintenance to prevent consuming calamity. I think this is. I think this is a problem with them as a person. I think they are much more used to solving big problems rather than doing maintenance, and much prefer that, and which leads them to having to solve a lot of problems that they could have avoided. Desire is the lovers. Twin stars in orbit, inseparable partners, a whole greater than the sum of its parts. I think I'm going to interpret that pretty straightforwardly. I think this person wants a partner, a romantic partner, even. But a partner, like a life partner kind of person. And method, how you'll get what you want, is guillotine. A system dismantled, a ruling class deposed, a worm rooted out. So perhaps this is them going through their options with great prejudice, really having really high expectations, and for the people in power around them. If they're going to have power over them, then they should be someone really worth the time. Next are the fates. Picture your fates as a snapshot of your character before the story starts. Deal and interpret these cards one at a time. There's Clotho, how you began. Lachesis, your current fortune. And Atropos, your final card. For example, in this spread, I'm actually going to flip Fountain to be industrial runoff, leeching ruin, the venom in a serpent's corpse, and maybe this is what led to them having their tongue cut out. Maybe they made a mistake in the Arachne group. Maybe they were higher once in the organization, and they reported on something that they shouldn't have, and that's how they got their tongue cut out. And Lachesis, your current fortune, a canteen passed along a trench, a drink shared with an old friend. Maybe they have met someone, an old friend of theirs who's come back to this town, and they've gotten drinks once or twice and been able to bond over the old days. And Atropos, your final card, is Hearth, closing doors, turning a blind eye, keeping your head low, weathering the storm. Now, your character's Atropos card is their swan song, their final move. You'll play this card to end your character's story, and you'll decide what it means then. You may advocate for the Arbiter after you play this, but your character has exited the story. I'll explain about the Arbiter in a minute. Keep your Atropos card face up on the table in front of you until you're ready to play it. This leads to the next important thing, which is that there are two mechanically special cards, the Desire card and the Atropos card. I've just explained what to do with the Atropos, so let's talk about Desire. Keep Desire cards at the top of the board, ordered so that you know whose is whose. When you work toward your goal, play your card on your Desire card. When you can prove it to the table that you've earned your Desire, take it and all the cards on top of it into your hand. Until then, all these cards stay locked at the top of the board. You cannot earn someone else's desire card, but you can help them achieve their goal by playing cards on their desire. So, the Atropos card stays in front of you, your desire card stays at the top of the board, and the rest of these cards go into your hand. Play from your hand to describe what you do or say, and draw into it to describe how you feel or change. Play your cards in any direction you like. Set the world's desire in Atropos aside. Shuffle the rest of the cards to create the Arbiter's deck. The Arbiter is a simple AI operating the world's ambitions. Anyone can play cards from this deck, and everyone should. Play from the Arbiter's deck when someone asks how the world reacts. Cards drawn from the main deck to answer questions are shuffled into the Arbiter's deck. You can fully GM Spindlewheel by taking primary authority over the Arbiter's responsibilities and using the deck as your hand. But by default, the world operates from this stack of cards. Entanglements. Our characters' lives are tangled together by life bonds, responsibilities, or dumb luck. To tie an entanglement with another player, declare who you want to have a tie with. Each of you play a card from your hand that describes what binds you. For example, this is what I need from you, or what you want from me, or why we can't avoid each other. Exchange these cards into each other's hands. Entanglements can be declared at any time, and you can tie entanglements with as many players as you want, including the Arbiter if you want to tie your character to the world. Which we'll do, maybe. I'm going to use Fountain as an awareness of the corruption of the Arachne group, but an impotence about anything to do about it. And from the Arbiter, I get Keepers. Which I'm going to interpret it as archivists quietly collecting gestures, stealing turns of phrase, as the group trying to get dirt on my character, who will name Boone. By the end of setup, everyone's desire cards, including the world's, should be lined up at the top of the table. Your chosen pattern should be full of card stacks, face down. You should each have a hand of cards, an idea of your characters, how they relate to one another, and how they engage with the world. On the table in front of you should be your Atropos card. The world's cards should be collected into the Arbiter's deck. The world's Atropos should be face up at the bottom of the deck. Now setup is done. This is a good spot to take a quick break if you've been playing for a while. Check in when everyone gets back. Check-in. Take a second to make sure everyone is on the same page. You can talk freely about things and use the following tools. Review, to ask clarifying questions and highlight cool moments. For example, hang on, what just happened? Revisit, to address missteps and punch up details. For example, I'm not comfortable or satisfied by this. Can I add or subtract or tweak it? Revise, by altering or redacting things that don't feel right by flipping or replacing or discarding cards. For example, I'd like to flip or replace or discard this card or aspect of the story. You should use the check-in to talk about things you're excited about too, not just things that worry you. Once you have nothing to change, give a thumbs up to everyone in the group. Only proceed once you've gotten a thumbs up from everyone. Gameplay proceeds through a series of scenes as dictated by the pattern you chose at the beginning of setup. We're playing Festival at the moment, but I'll showcase longform after. Each scene begins with 2 cards crossed that serve as prompts to start a scene thread, usually with a title and description like a conversation, a dialogue, a letter from home as guidance. The cycle of gameplay is as follows. Someone who hasn't gone recently interprets the 2 cards to set the scene. So in this case, Plague, a well-weathered curse, a developed immunity, an acquired taste, and Duchess, bad with money, hostile to criticism, detached from reality, or passionate ally, generous patron, lavish host. Now let's say this is the current leader of the Arachne group, and she's called Boone in for a conversation. Take turns in any order, just try not to go twice in a row. On your turn, play a card from your character's hand or from the Arbiter on the scene thread to affect the scene, or into someone's hand to affect their character, or on a desire card to pursue your goals. Or you can draw into your hand to see how you feel or change, or draw it into the Arbiter to answer a world question. This sounds like a lot of options, and it is, but you don't have to do them all at once, and in play they're very manageable. Let's go through them one at a time with this scene. So say I decide that what I want to do in this scene is to test the Duchess. I want to know if she is the real deal. And I do so with guillotine, a breath held, an axe suspended, a frayed rope pulled taut. And this is, I think, Boone kind of folding their arms and standing imposingly until the Duchess speaks. And because the Duchess is a part of our world, I will draw from the Arbiter's deck to figure out what she does. Which is, I think, to Fountain, which is the card that I traded, which is to kind of stand up and talk to me about my history with the Arachne group, how an errant tongue doesn't go unnoticed here. That's playing from my hand, and that's playing from the Arbiter's deck. Now, I'm not sure what to do with that, with the cards that I have, and it makes sense for Boone to kind of take a moment and figure out their options. So I'm going to draw from the deck, which is the final rose, the last bloom of the season, a tribute, an invitation. And so this card is how my character feels or changes because of the scene. And I think that's Boone seeing this as an invitation of a kind. I think they see a degree of sorrow in the Duchess's explanation of their predicament. And because I drew from the deck, then the Arbiter gets to go again, which just kind of keeps the flow of play moving, which is Nightmare, Fears Justified, Omens Fulfilled. I think the Duchess confides in Boone and says that she thinks that she's being set up. And I think instead of playing on the scene thread, what I'm going to do is play on my desire, as I am kind of choosing the Duchess as a target. I think I'm going to use Goose Down and kind of take her hand and look at her with reassuring eyes, like I am a trustworthy person to tell all of this to. And that's how playing onto the desire works. Now I'm not sure where we are, so I'm gonna draw from the deck to answer that question. Holy Stricture, Warnings and Fable, Lessons in Allegory, History and Folklore. Okay, so let's put this. Let's go with the holy part and put this in a church. maybe behind the belfry or something like that, or in a pew. Um, and so I'm going, because I drew that to answer a question, I'm going to put that into the Arbiter's deck. That's how the Arbiter's deck gets replenished. Now, if I were playing this multiplayer, I could choose to play a card into another person's hand in order to affect their character directly. This is sort of akin to entanglements, except it's one-sided. You don't need two people to do it. So those are the options that you have on your turn. You can play a card from your character's hand or from the arbiter onto the scene thread to affect the scene, into someone else's hand to affect their character, or onto the desire to pursue your goals. Or you can draw into your hand to see how you feel or change, or you can draw for the arbiter to answer world questions. At the end of the scene, each player picks one card from the thread for their character to carry forward. Say as much or as little about your choice as you like. So for this, I think I would pick guillotine, because that's still uncertain to me. That's a tool that I will still need going forward. Then ask everyone, what haven't we seen the last of? Give that card to the arbiter. And I think this one is kind of obvious. I'm going to go with the Duchess, because I want to see her again. So we're going to put that into the arbiter's deck. Retire the thread back into its slot and cue a new scene. So we're going to take these cards and move them over here. And now this pattern is used. Festival works by stringing event after event together in rapid succession. You don't have to use every event, but you should end the game after 6 if you can. When you pick an event, pick one side of the card. For instance, either a conversation or an ultimatum, but not both. You can only use a pattern card once. Retire the threads back to its slot and cue a new scene. Keep spinning threads until everyone has played their Atropos cards. Then the game ends. For example, maybe we move from that directly into an invitation. So we would take these cards and flip them, and someone who hasn't gone recently would set the scene with them. And so you go around doing your turns again until the scene ends, and then you would pick cards from this, and then start a new scene. So on and so forth until everyone has played their Atropos cards, or you've played all of the scenes. Long form works a little bit differently. You still open each act with 2 cards, but you also end that act with 2 cards to resolve it. For instance, if we were playing Act 1, the first challenge, the first chance to prove yourself. Mother of Monsters, a vengeful force purging the poison from its home, and Alpha, head of the household, leader of the pack, fierce protector of kith and kin. Now this is a very different picture of the Duchess than the Duchess was. This is someone who is taking the group by storm, and perhaps the duty is to purge the Arachne group of dissenters. And so what Boone would do is wildfire, air scarlet with smoke, rivers molten and glowing. I think that's exactly what Boone is built to do. And so I think there is a montage of them kicking ass and taking names. Now we would go back and forth and play through this scene until we reached an ultimatum, a point at which we need to resolve it. And at that point, we would let's say we've played through, and this is the entirety of this scene. At that point, we would take these two cards. And it being luck, a placed bet, a lapse in judgment, a false positive, and quiet knife, an impulse unsuppressed, an instant both decisive and incisive, maybe Boone takes out the wrong person, gets the wrong information and acts on it too quickly, and so now they're in hot water. That would be how an act works. And at the end of the act, we would take cards as usual. Perhaps I'll take Wildfire back, and perhaps I will put Mother of Monsters into the Arbiter's deck as something we haven't seen the last of. And the rest of this gets retired. So between acts are these things called intermissions. These are downtime scenes. They're free-form scenes that anyone can start. Everyone draws one card to play, keep, or cross with another card from their hand to start a scene. For instance, I'm going to draw my intermission card, which is Artisan, a skillful hand, a practiced eye, a weathered tool, and a clean slate. Which I think I am going to say is I'm going to cross with darkness, a curtain thicker than the absence of light, as Boone kind of takes care of their tools and bolsters their reputation in order to weather this storm. And during this, anyone else can play on this scene to include themselves in it. So let's say that the Arbiter includes itself. And our leader, our Mother of Monsters, has a very peculiar request to make. And instead of punishing Boone, provides to them an apprentice. And because this is a new character, that we don't know anything about, let's draw a Corin crossing for them. It's Overgrowth and Trickster. So this is a very a guileful creature. Someone who has risen through the ranks because of the Purge very quickly, and who is very, very quick with a knife, I think. And I think Boone will try and bond with this person. Takes him out for drinks. Let's call them kudzu. We'll try to bond with kudzu, and let's see how they react. Drawing from the Arbiter's deck. I think that they are kind of a mess. They're bad with money, they're hostile to criticism, they're detached from reality. And so it's very difficult to befriend this person, but they're stuck with them. So at the end of this thread, just like at all of the other threads, you'll choose a card to keep, which I think will be darkness again. That reputation is still really important to Boone. Um, I think this attempted bond is going to come up again. Um, so I'm going to put that into the Arbiter's deck, and the rest of these get retired. Now, if there were other players in this game, they could they will draw and decide what to do with their card. So I might have instead put my card onto my desire to pursue that a little bit further, or I might have just kept it instead of starting a scene. It's up to you. It's up to how many cards you have in your hand, and what kind of position you have in the story. What you want to do with your intermission. Once the intermission scenes are finished, move on to the next act. Keep playing through acts and intermissions until you get to the final intermission. When ending play, play your Atropos card to end your character's part in the story. You may advocate for the Arbiter after you play this, but your character has exited the story. So I would play Hearth, and perhaps, you know, I would say that Boone goes to ground. Boone disappears from the world, and decides to flee the Arachne group. And once everyone has played their Atropos card, revisit the world's Atropos. Did it come true? Echo, which I could argue did come true, as Boone kind of became that echo, that tongue tripped with stutters, chest full of birds, head full of fog. Now, optionally, you can draw an epilogue card. Our characters and world have changed over the course of this adventure. The epilogue card describes how. Draw or choose your character's card from anywhere on the table, and choose the world's card together. Ending with the world, describe your ultimate fate. So I might say, I might take Goose Down as my epilogue card, and say that Boone finds a place to be quiet, a snowy cabin in the woods, for example, and it lives a life of solitude, taking from the lovers a thing that never came to fruition. And perhaps the world, I might grab Overgrowth, and say that the Arachne group became too big to exist, and collapsed under its own weight. Finally, let's do the final check-in. Review by asking clarifying questions and highlighting cool moments. Revisit by addressing missteps and punching up details. And revise by altering or redacting things that don't feel right. Use as many or as few of these actions as you want. Once you're satisfied, thank your fellow players for an excellent story. And that's Spindlewheel. Thank you for taking the time to learn with me. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below, contact me on Twitter @tcabbage, or email me at sasha@tcabbage.com. For more information about Spindlewheel, go to tcabbage.com/spindlewheel. If you'd like to hear this play, check out Spindlewheel Stories on your podcatcher of choice, or check out the actual plays linked in the description. There are several excellent ones to choose from. Thank you again, and happy playing.